Since I had arrived on the SS Vorpal, it was always moving. It was a well-built ship, resilient to the unending motion of the waves beneath it. But it was still only a boat. It would rock and shift with the water, rising and falling as if it were breathing. As I stepped out from the greenhouse, leaving Kojiro's body and dying message behind, the ship, for the first time ever, was totally still, as if it was holding its breath alongside my classmates. None of them dared to speak, analyzing eyes watching me, waiting for me to say something in my defense. The trial hadn't begun yet, but they had already made themselves a jury, and me the defendant. Even as time resumed and the ship once again began to oscillate over the waves, I remained silent.
You asshole!
The only one bold enough to make a move was Mamiko Rain. She had broken free from the people holding her back and was now storming toward me.
You'd better have a good explanation for this.
She grabbed me by the collar, dragging me to her level. As ever, her strength was impressive. I wouldn't be able to escape, and it was unlikely I'd remain unharmed if I didn't provide her with an adequate answer. I don't.
What?
I don't have an explanation for this.
Why? You've gotta know something! Come on, spit it out!
I shook my head, her teeth grit at the sight. Mamiko, despite her anger, was a kind woman at heart. She wanted to at least give me a chance. She had some hope that maybe there was something else she was missing, that she could maybe catch sight of whatever it was that made ji-yeong and Kokoro see good in me. Of course, she did not.
I get it! You've been working against us, haven't you? You act like you don't care, but you get involved in all the investigating anyway. You were covering it all up. That's why you're always saying out-of-pocket crap, too. You've been riling us up to throw us off your trail.
Mamiko, that's enough.
Oh, come on! It totally tracks. We just need to get a confession out of him.
That's what we have the trial for.
No! I want to hear it!
She turned to face me again. I could never get used to her stare, the reddening anger in her face, the wetness of held-back tears in her eyes. They all served to accentuate the blue of her irises. The color was so intense, bright and overwhelming, like the cloudless sky over the desert. Anyone would be moved to a confession by such a stare. Yet I remained still and silent.
Come on! Say it! Did you kill Kojiro?
I refused to answer. The atmosphere across the deck shifted. In a state of heightened paranoia, my words were tantamount to a confession. The tension directed at me only intensified, as did Mamiko's grip on my collar.
Masayuki, what are you saying?
She's made up her mind. There's no point in me answering.
Ugh! I'm so sick of you and your little mind games!
See? Her hand raised, ready to lash out at me. I knew for certain it'd hurt immensely if it landed, and with her grasp on me, it would certainly land. Despite this, I didn't fear her at all. I pitied her. It was a shame she had to suffer the way she did, to be brought to such lengths by her despair. As her punch came toward me, I didn't think about avoiding it or bracing myself. I merely lamented that she had not accepted this despair sooner.
It's time! That's right! Your 2 hours are up and the class trial is about to begin! Please make your way to the helipad at the front of the ship and prepare for the big event!
Mamiko's hand fell short. Dropping to her side, all the tension released at once. Without a word, she let go of me, leading the charge to begin the class trial. Hanamaki pursued her, chiding her for her violence. The rest began to gradually take their eyes off me, beginning their journey to the front of the ship. Ji-yeong moved separately from the pack, instead approaching me.
What the hell's gotten into you?
Nothing. I'm behaving as I always do.
You know, I made a big deal about understanding you, but you don't make it easy, do you?
He shook his head, pinching the bridge of his nose. There was a doubt in him, eating away at his heart. I'm sure he was questioning his decision to befriend me at all.
Look, I want to be on your side, but if you really did it...
He looked up at me, a rare intensity on his face.
I'll never forgive you.
If I did it, one of us isn't making it out of this alive.
Even so, I'll take it to the grave.
His jacket swished as he turned away from me. I was struck by his intensity. I'm sure there was an incredible power to those words in his mind. Left alone, I followed behind the others, the group of us marching like a twisted parade as we headed toward our first class trial. The helipad was a feature we had taken little notice of before, so commonplace on a ship like this that it was hardly worth note. It was a simple white H in a red circle over a black landing area. I had to wonder if Monopengu had intentionally color-coded it.
Please do not step foot on the helipad area. I repeat, please do not step foot on the helipad. Or do. Just know I'm not responsible for what happens next.
As requested, we kept our distance. The deck vibrated beneath us as the helipad opened up, the circular area giving way for something to rise from beneath. It was a platform, composed of a black and white checkerboard spiraling inward. It was hypnotic as it spun into place, rising to be flush with the deck.
Please step onto the platform. Remember, keep all your limbs inside the designated area.
We took slow, tentative steps onto the platform. Soon enough, we began our descent. The floor spanned slowly beneath us. Looking down became disorientating, so we elected to look up. We all stared at the sky, fully aware that this may be our last chance to ever do so. We couldn't take our eyes off of it, even as the helipad closed up above us. Our descent into hell continued slowly and silently. Everyone had found a place within the small elevator. Erica had taken to a corner at the back, chewing her fingernails as she observed everyone around her, head rotating back and forth like a security camera to keep everyone in view. Jim had taken the opposite corner, much more static, but also observing, likely profiling us as he explored the case in his head. Yelena was the same, though she stood nearer the left wall. It was much harder to tell what she was thinking, expression as blank as always. Sonny and Jackie whispered to each other close to the front, both still trying to get all the information straight in their heads. It didn't seem like they were getting very far. Jiang Xiao stood toward the front, too, rocking on her heels and humming. Mamiko shot her a dirty look from her place against the right wall. Hanamaki was somewhere between them, counting in her head to keep calm, no doubt. Harold drifted near one of the walls but didn't quite commit, keeping to himself and wringing his sweat-soaked hands. Marcus was the only person moving, prodding various spots with his cane, hunting for secrets. Drew was uncharacteristically noiseless, not silent but quiet by his standards. He was toward the edge, eyes closed and praying. Ji-yeong was a good few paces ahead of me. I couldn't get a good look at his face, but he seemed focused. I stood toward the back, but still relatively central. Enigma mirrored my position toward the front. And as ever, Kokoro was by my side.
Why didn't you defend yourself? You didn't do it, so why didn't you say so?
Why are you so certain I didn't do it?
There's not really a reason. You just didn't.
She didn't look at me, just stared straight ahead as she spoke.
I know that sounds dumb, but I just know, you know?
It does sound idiotic. I've given you no reason to believe in me.
Haven't you?
She looked up at me finally. She wasn't smiling. There was an intensity to her I had never felt before. She radiated hope like the sun. It burned to be so close to her.
I mean, I do get why someone would doubt you. You're antisocial, dismissive, a little mean even, but...
She hummed and shrugged her shoulders, unable to articulate what she was feeling. It was a certainty that exceeded human reason, even human language.
I can just tell.
Just tell what?
You're a good person, Masayuki. Sure, you can act like you aren't, but there's stuff you just can't fake. Ever since we got here, you've been working the hardest out of any of us. You've been investigating non-stop. You helped me when I got attacked. Even this morning, you were thinking of nothing but Kojiro, even before we found out he was dead.
That could have all been to serve my own ends.
Yeah, maybe. I'd probably believe that if I hadn't seen you up close. But having spent so much time with you, it's obvious.
What is?
You really care. It's clear from the way you look at Mamiko. Even when she's so angry at you, you want to help her, right?
I elected not to respond.
You want what's best for everyone, in your own way. Maybe you don't like me all too much, but we're quite similar in that way, don't you think?
I hadn't noticed, but my fingernails had dug deep into my palms, close to drawing blood. Kokoro Uehara remained incomprehensible to me, her saccharine sentiments toxic to my very being. If I was to achieve my goal, she was the first obstacle I'd have to surmount.
Well, I do at least. And I think if we work together, we can...
You're right.
Oh? I am?
I don't like you all that much. At last, our descent ended. I didn't watch for Kokoro's reaction, instead stepping out into the strange new environment we found ourselves in. The checkerboard elevator platform had perfectly found its place at the center of the floor, completing a pattern that spanned across the entire area. It was a mock courtroom of some kind, 16 pedestals all in a circle, which would allow us all a panoptical view of each other. A few feet away was a towering platform, crowned with some mix of a throne and a judge's bench. Monopengu was already positioned there, practically salivating with anticipation as he watched us arrive. As I had expected, we were underwater. The walls were glass, allowing us a view of the deep, dark ocean surrounding us on all sides. It was serene and unsettling in equal measure. Schools of fish swam together in perfect unison, only to be scattered by a shark that had caught them unaware.
Ugh. This place gives me the creeps.
You don't like the ocean? Why the hell did you sign up to live on a boat?
It's not the ocean. It's the fish.
Oh, you're kidding me. You're scared of fish?
I ain't scared. They just creep me out a little.
Oh man, that's priceless.
Oh, lay off him. He can't help it. It's a phobia. They're irrational.
I appreciate that, but it's not a phobia. I'm not scared.
Don't worry, Jim. Either way, this is a wonderful opportunity for exposure therapy.
After taking in our surroundings, we finally made our way to the 16 pedestals. One had already been claimed by a black and white portrait of Kokuro, a large pink X smeared onto his face. There was much deliberation over who would stand next to it. In the end, unprompted, I took one side and Jiang Xiao took the other. From there, we filled out. Next to Jiang Xiao was Drew, then Erika, Jackie, Mamiko, ji-yeong, Hanamaki, Enigma, Jim, Elena, Marcus, Sonny, Harold, and finally, next to me, Kokoro.
Ahem. Order in the court.
No one was even talking.
I said order! Now, welcome to the class trial. Before we begin, I'd like to briefly make sure everyone is aware of the rules. After all, it's been 3 episodes since we last explained them.
What is that supposed to mean?
Now questions! You don't want to be the next Kojiro, do you? So, during the trial, you'll all present your arguments for who the culprit is, and when you've reached a conclusion, vote for whodunit. If you vote correctly, only the blackened will be executed. If you vote incorrectly, the blackened will graduate from the UTCP and be allowed to leave, and the rest of you will be executed. Be sure to vote carefully. And just in case you get any funny ideas, I'd like to clarify a few things. From this point on, leaving your pedestals during a class trial will be classed as breaking into an off-limits area, and will breach the recently introduced rule number 7. Furthermore, any students who refuse to vote will be executed, which will be formalized as rule number 8.
Damn it.
Right! With Marcus effectively neutralized, let's get right on into it. Class trial, begin! I said begin?
We're gonna. It's just.
Yeah, how do we want to start things? Usually the prosecution gives an opening statement.
But in this case, we are all the prosecution, defense, defendant, judge, and jury all at once. A very poor system.
How about we just pin it on Masayuki and call it a day?
As much as I sustain being here, I don't think that's a good idea.
Of course it is. I mean, his name was literally on the crime scene. That proves it.
Yeah! What more evidence could you need?
Oh, wow. Someone was actually dumb enough to go with that.
That dying message is a bit odd, though. Could he have really written it like that?
One of his wrists was cut by the glass too, it wasn't just his back. The radial artery would produce more than enough blood to write something like that, not to mention how it'd conveniently drip onto his hand.
Very true. The blood on his back would have been very hard to work with, but with such a bountiful source pouring directly into his hand, that'd be perfect.
Can we please stop talking about the blood?
You seem to know a lot about his injuries. Suspicious.
I checked out the body just like everyone else.
So his wrist was slit, and Jiang Xiao just forgot to mention that in her autopsy?
Potentially. His wrists were covered by his jacket, and most of the blood would have dripped off by then.
I was a little preoccupied with all the other stuff. I mean, a head wound, a hanging, and the lacerations on his back. There was so much to sink my teeth into.
Oh, please stop.
You're lying for sure. Stop trying to cover for yourself, Masayuki!
There was an excessive amount of blood on his hands. We all saw that. The injury to his wrist likely just went unnoticed. How about we establish all the facts before we start arguing? Get us all on the same page so something like this doesn't happen again. How's that sound? Alright, from what I can tell, Kojiro sent a letter calling out Kokoro's attacker to meet him at the greenhouse at midnight. When they arrived, a confrontation broke out. He was attacked and shoved through the greenhouse wall, leaving shattered glass embedded in his back. After this, the struggle continued, with his attacker then taking a branch from the nearby tree and striking him over the head with it, resulting in the injury on the back of his head. From there, they likely struck him again, breaking his neck in an attempt to finish him off. Subsequently, to disguise their murder, they first used rope to hang him from the tree, and then a shovel to disguise the murder weapon by moving various flowers around in the area. After this, they most likely left and returned to their room, but unbeknownst to them, their attack on Kojiro wasn't actually lethal. He remained alive and left a dying message on the tree behind him using his blood, likely making his actual method of death blood loss or suffocation. How does that all sound?
Well...
Overall, it's fine. But the specifics seem a little...
It's all wrong. There's already so many holes in it. There's no way he wrote a dying message with his neck broken. And if they broke into the greenhouse, when did they have time to saw off the branch? You could just throttle him or beat him to death with your hands in that time. Heck, if you had a saw, you could just...
All right, we get the picture. There's definitely something off with that branch, though.
Yes, the greenhouse was locked as I recalled. I don't see how they'd have an opportunity to cut it off in the midst of the struggle with Mr. Nakasawa.
Maybe they prepared it in advance somehow.
No way! That branch definitely came from that tree! It matches perfectly!
Not to mention, the greenhouse was locked. There was only one person who could access it early.
Aha! So it's... Hang on! I didn't do it!
I wasn't saying that you did.
But it is the only way we have to explain the murder weapon. Only you could have unlocked the greenhouse. Or me. Probably. But I didn't even know it was locked.
Hold on! Sonny has an alibi. Drew saw him asleep, remember?
That I did. He was definitely fast asleep. No way you could fake such hellish snoring.
I told you! I don't!
You do! Don't deny reality!
Rich coming from you, preacher man.
How dare you!
Ooh, I've got it! A theory that explains everything!
Oh, thank God. What have you got?
As we've all figured out, the current order of events is basically impossible. Since the greenhouse was locked and only made accessible when the killer attacked Kojiro, we have to assume they didn't obtain the branch until after their struggle, right?
Logically.
Therefore, the cause of death likely isn't him being assaulted with the branch. So, I propose we switch our thinking. What if, instead of attacking him and then hanging him, it was the opposite?
You think they hung him first?
Yes! Death by suffocation!
But I thought he was hit over the head.
He was, just after he was already hung up. It makes perfect sense. The killer hung him from the tree and then moved on to prepare the branch. During this time, as he was suffocating, Kojiro wrote his dying message using the blood from his back. After that, they took the sawn-off branch and bashed his dead body over the head with it.
Surely the point of the rope was to fake a suicide, though. Why ruin that by defacing the corpse?
That's where I run out of ideas. My best guess is that it was to disguise the suffocation and make it look like he was killed with the branch. But the hanging itself was already a perfectly good cover-up. It's counterintuitive no matter how you look at it.
So what? You've just wasted our time with a crackpot theory that doesn't make any sense?
It's not exactly crackpot. It does make all the events line up logically.
Yeah, the only strange part would be the killer's behavior.
Maybe the killer's just strange. There are many unusual people in the world.
You can say that again.
So what? We're just writing the killer off as a weirdo? All the more reason to vote for Masayuki, I guess.
No, we shouldn't write anything off. In fact, this is some extremely valuable information. I trust you have all heard of criminal profiling, yes?
Criminal profiling? Like how they use crime scenes to figure out a criminal's personality?
Absolutely correct. Using my extensive knowledge of criminal behavior, I have already developed a short list of 7 suspects.
You're down to 7? Damn, I only wrote off like 4.
Do not be ashamed, Jim. You are just a regular policeman. This is closer to my specialty.
If you've got it down to 7 people, then just tell us their names. The less suspects, the better.
No, it would be more pertinent for me to share the psychological profile itself, so we can all apply it as and when it is needed.
Aw, come on. I wanted to know if I made the list.
You did.
Hell yeah.
You probably shouldn't celebrate that.
You sure? I think I've got a pretty good idea of what she's gonna say next.
I am going to begin now. The killer is obviously someone very intelligent. For this reason, we can roll out Sonny immediately.
Hell yeah!
She just called you an idiot, Sonny.
An innocent idiot!
Assuming our current understanding of events is correct, there is only one explanation for why the killer would do something as counterintuitive as presenting us with 2 contradictory cover-ups. They were creating chaos. If the crime were meticulously planned out, there would be no need for such unusual behavior. Therefore, we can infer that the killer likely acted suddenly and opportunistically.
Any dumbass could waltz up to a crime scene and start aimlessly fucking shit up, though. I thought you said they had to be smart.
I first just wanted to establish that the crime was likely not premeditated. The clear signs of intelligence come from the intentionality of it all. Burying the branch and hiding the tools that were used to do so, shifting the roses in the greenhouse to further cover up the evidence and make exact location of the death unclear. A less intelligent culprit would not have disguised these things. They would have left us an overwhelming abundance of contradictory evidence, hoping that we lose ourselves amidst our theories. However, the evidence is laid out in ways that specifically direct our line of thinking. The clear wound on the head immediately invites us to hunt for a murder weapon. That directs us to the branch, which then disrupts our entire timeline of events. Finding it buried causes us to investigate the area further, only complicating things more when we discover the saw and shovel, 2 perfectly viable murder weapons that went unused. Not to mention the rope around his neck, which, by this point, we've been led away from. We're forced to try and reconcile all this contradictory information, leading us to improbable conclusions like Jiang Xiao's theory, which we are working from now. We have been led into a maze, constructed cleverly to lead us to dead ends, force us to turn back on ourselves, and eventually devolve entirely into chaos. Given their lack of planning, this instability is what they are relying on to win. We must not jump to any further conclusions.
Screw not jumping to conclusions! Masayuki so obviously fits that profile. If anyone's been causing chaos, it's him!
Mamiko, please, calm down. Like Yelena said, the killer's relying on you getting angry to win.
Stop saying the killer like we don't already know who it is. It's Masayuki, and I can prove it.
You can?
That's right. First off, he has no alibi. Ji-yeong was asleep in the rec room all night, right? We have no idea where he was at midnight.
That's true, but that goes for other people who lost sight of their roommates. Hanamaki or Ji-yeong, for example.
Fine, but they don't have a pattern of creepy-ass behavior. When hasn't Masayuki taken an opportunity to sneak off? Yesterday, he was constantly trying to shake Ji-yeong. He snuck away from all of us at the pool party, and he just happened to arrive at the kitchen before anyone else when the smashing happened last night? If it was just once or twice, maybe, but this is consistent.
Yeah, but we can pretty much vouch for his whereabouts the rest of the time. I even saw him talking to Kokoro while the rest of us were in the pool.
So did I, but that's the thing. Why did Kojiro suddenly switch up last night? He was totally normal all day before he spoke to Masayuki. What changed?
I'm not sure what you're saying.
Masayuki's the one who attacked you, Kokoro. I'm sure of it. Why else would Kojiro switch up and suddenly decide to confront your attacker after speaking to him? He had a ton of opportunities earlier in the day, so why did he leave it until after the pool party? It's because he only figured it out then. Whatever Masayuki said to him, that's what tipped him off.
What? No, he isn't.
Isn't he? Why would the attacker target you specifically? Of all the people, it either had to be convenient or they'd have to have a grudge. And who was standing closest to you during the blackout?
It was Masayuki, but
even if it wasn't just convenient, the guy hates you. That much is obvious. He always looks at you like you're some kind of freak. He's the most obvious culprit.
He doesn't...
Oh yeah, let's think about all those times where he gave you a reason to trust him. Spoiler, there are none.
Even still, there's no evidence.
There is! Don't you remember all the scraps of fabric on the broken glass? They match his jacket perfectly!
But they match the pajamas too, don't they?
That's right. Both his jacket and UTCP pajamas just happen to be the exact same beautiful shade of faded plum. They're basically impossible to tell apart.
So it could have been anyone.
They're close, sure, but the material is different. The pajamas are thinner. Either way, Kokoro, please don't waste your breath believing in that guy. He even fits the psychological profile. He opportunistically looks for times to sneak off. He causes chaos by saying creepy shit to make people paranoid. He's obviously smart too. Smart enough to pull this off. Please, Kokoro, if you look, it's obvious.
Kokoro looked at me, lilac eyes trembling with uncertainty. I only responded with a blank expression of my own. I was glad Mamiko had made herself such an enemy of mine. I don't think I could have said anything to make Kokoro give up on me, but through a combination of logic and emotion, Mamiko was managing to reach her. I watched Kokoro carefully, waiting for the moment where she would finally break.
The psychological profile only applies if it wasn't premeditated, right?
Kokoro.
Correct. If it was planned ahead of time, the contradictions correct themselves and the murder becomes far more straightforward. At that point, it could be anyone, barring those lacking in the intellect to plan such a thing.
Ha! So I'm still safe!
Well, isn't it possible they broke into the greenhouse in advance? I know it's a big assumption to make, but is it any bigger than all the mental gymnastics required for the psychological profile to apply? I mean, usually the simplest explanation is the truth. Occam's razor and all. You said it yourself, Yelena. Jiang Xiao's theory is flawed. If the killer was intelligent, they'd likely not ruin their suicide setup in the first place. Their goal, no matter what, is to get away with this and escape, right? They'd logically take the easiest path toward that, not make it more difficult for themselves.
I agree with that. Think about how many checks we've been writing the killer. To think on that level and be so adaptable, you'd have to be a genius. But if you were a genius, you'd just disguise it all as a suicide and call it a day. The kind of person we're talking about in the scenario is just unrealistic.
Exactly. It just makes more sense if it was pre-planned. That way, the head wound can come before the hanging.
Aw, but that's so lame in comparison.
It is far more realistic. But it's not like there's any evidence.
Wait a minute. No, that's wrong. Think about it. There's been obvious evidence the entire time. The rope, the saw, and the shovel, remember? We know those didn't come from the greenhouse itself, but they were instrumental in the murderer's plan. Even going off of Jiang Xiao's scenario, there'd have been no opportunity for the killer to go grab the rope they used to hang Kojiro if they hadn't planted it in advance.
Yeah, so they must have broken in earlier. It even makes sense with the letter.
What? I told you, that's not what the letter was for! He was calling out the person who attacked Kokoro! Besides, why would he even do that? That's basically inviting the killer to kill him!
He was kinda doing that anyway. I didn't want to say it, Mamiko, but his plan was naive from the start. I don't know what made him think he could single-handedly stop a murderer with just his words. It was an admirable idea, but...
What? Are you calling him an idiot now? He was trying to help!
I know, but no matter how you look at it, this was gonna be the result.
First Kokoro, and now you. I thought you were on my side! Why are you bending over backwards for his sake?
We're just exploring all the options. I don't want to vote anyone if there's reasonable doubt. It's not about Masayuki.
It is! You can say you're being objective all you like, but you're on his side! Why? He's so obviously guilty! He hasn't said a single word to defend himself, and here you are, throwing yourselves in the line of fire for him over and over! What's wrong with you?
Mamiko's hands gripped the edge of her pedestal. She leaned forward, glaring straight at me as she spat her words at Kokoro and ji-yeong. It was a pitiful sight. She had directed every negative emotion at me. All her anger, sadness, confusion. I was a convenient outlet for them all. But now, Kokoro and ji-yeong had stripped that from her, and she was left with nowhere to deposit the difficult emotions whirling around inside her, forced to release them haphazardly in all directions.
Mamiko, that's enough! We should just ditch the psychological profile for now. It's too uncertain.
A shame. I'm back up to 11 suspects again.
Fine. But I'm still not convinced that he didn't do it.
You'll get your chance when we vote. So, if we've determined it must have been premeditated, we're basically back to square one, right?
Seems so.
Not quite. You'd think so, but now there's even more questions. Why the glass in his back, for example? He'd have to have been pushed over onto the ground if the wall was already broken. Possible, though realistically that'd be the perfect time to strike and kill him. The wound would be on the front of his head. Equally, if they caught him unawares and hit him on the back of his head first, he would have fallen forwards and gotten the glass embedded in his front. It doesn't add up.
Aside from that anomaly, the rest makes sense though, right? He was hit over the head, the killer assumed he was dead and hung him up. Still alive, he wrote his dying message. He wasn't noticed, but the killer did realize he was still breathing, so they struck him again and broke his neck.
I guess.
We're just talking in circles. How about we take a break from the crime scene for now and talk about our alibis? We've determined from the letter that the murder happened around midnight, so it's probably worth re-examining them.
Around midnight isn't particularly helpful, though, is it? We've got no way to really determine the time of death.
Yeah, normally with cases like these, you'd get an autopsy report. But we ain't so lucky.
So we've just gotta guess?
Alright, you got me. Please forgive me.
What are you talking about?
I admit it. I was supposed to keep track of the time of death.
What? You were in on this the whole time?
No. Usually in a killing game, I'm supposed to play an administrative role. To that end, I usually give you information like the time of death through a handy little tablet called the Monopengu file. It's a miracle machine providing you all the basic facts of the case. Only they weren't ready yet.
How'd you wind up unprepared? You had time to set up this entire killing game, but not enough time to prepare a few tablets?
Do you know how long it takes to get all the backgrounds right? The graphic design is intense, you know. Not to mention I have to load up all your personal information. Heights, weights, etc.
I don't like that you have those.
Oh, I've got way more. Want to know the circumference of your nostrils?
No.
Oh.
Ooh, what about the glass smashing? The culprit must have broken in, right? If we can track when that happened, we'll know when they enter the greenhouse.
We already know where the noises came from. Don't you remember? The first one was Hanamaki, and the second one was Harold.
Hang on, noises? There was only one noise. I heard it myself.
Well, you're clearly mistaken. Yelena and I were there. We saw the broken glasses ourselves.
She's correct. You must have missed the second one.
Ain't no way! Sonny wasn't snoring that loud!
I only heard one too, and I had no such distractions. Jackie is a very quiet sleeper.
Good to know.
Well, which was it? 1 or 2?
2. One at 12:18, the other at 12:20, 2 minutes later.
He lives! You jump-scared me there. I forgot you even existed.
These times are exact. I checked my clock before entering the kitchen.
He's not lying. Yelena and I got back to our room at 12:24. The timeline adds up.
Doesn't change the fact that I heard 1 exactly. I definitely did not hear a second.
Maybe you just fell asleep between them.
Not possible. It takes 10 minutes on average for a person to fall asleep. I know. I've counted.
You didn't use me for that, did you?
Oh, no. I did that research a long time ago. Besides, you got to sleep in 5 minutes. Way shorter than average.
Oh, thanks?
There were only 2 minutes between the crashes, so it simply doesn't make sense for us to have fallen asleep between the two.
Well, someone's gotta be wrong here, and it's not me!
Or there were 3? I thought I was mistaken, but something woke me up not too long after midnight. I wasn't sure what it was. After that, I couldn't get back to bed for a while. 10 minutes later, I heard the other two back to back. When I found out about what happened in the kitchen, I figured I was just mistaken. But if you guys heard the one on its own, then...
That all makes sense then. You heard the first one, then 10 minutes later, the other two. That meant there was enough time for Drew and Jiang Xiao to fall asleep. Simple enough.
So, if the 2 smashes in the kitchen happened at 12:18, and you're saying the first one happened 10 minutes earlier...
That places the first shatter at 12:08, just after midnight.
Right, and if that's the case, then there's only one thing it could have been.
Wait, you're saying it was the killer breaking into the greenhouse?
Precisely.
But that mean...
That'll mean it couldn't have been premeditated. Your whole theory goes right out the window. Great job!
Kokoro's face went pale. She looked at me for a moment, already aware of what her careless revelation would lead to next.
Oh, look at that. She's figuring it out. That's right. If it wasn't premeditated, the psychological profile's back on the table, baby.
That's right. And that means your defense of Masayuki loses all of its weight. I tried to tell you, Kokoro.
Hold on. Does that really prove anything?
Of course it does. Face it, everything still lines up. His lack of an alibi, his shady behavior, Kojiro's shift in attitude, the fabric scraps, the psychological profile. His name was even on the damn crime scene. How much more do you need?
Masayuki was in the kitchen though, remember? A ton of people saw him.
So? That only tells us where he was from 12:18 onward. It doesn't prove he couldn't have done it.
No, that's wrong. If he was upstairs at 12:08, there's no way he could have made it down to the kitchen in time. If the greenhouse was broken into at 12:08, that means he'd have had to kill Kojiro, hang his body, cover up the crime scene, then finally murder him, all in 10 minutes.
He didn't have to do all of it. He could have covered it up after his visit to the kitchen.
It takes 5 minutes to get from the greenhouse to the kitchen to begin with. And at minimum, he'd still have to kill Kojiro, hang him, and wash off any blood left on his skin or clothes so it would appear clean when he arrived at the kitchen. No matter how you look at it, it simply couldn't be done.
So he has an alibi.
Not just him. Everyone who is in the kitchen does.
Interesting. That narrows down my list of suspects significantly.
Oh, that incriminates me, right? Since Jackie was asleep and can't vouch for me.
Not just you. Me, you, Drew, Enigma, and Jim, even Kokoro herself, technically. All of us either didn't see our roommates or fell asleep second. No one can speak to our whereabouts.
Well, that's no good. I need a counter-argument.
Hold on. You still haven't answered everything else. You keep relying on these little logical tricks that keep getting disproven. You're just running away.
This isn't a trick. It's an alibi. An airtight alibi.
She's right, Mamiko. It's pretty undeniable. I think we need to re-examine the remaining people without alibis. I admit Masayuki's suspicious, but as it stands, it just can't be him.
Exactly. It couldn't be him or anyone else in the kitchen.
Ooh, I've got an idea. Maybe that alibi isn't so airtight after all. I mean, all we've got to prove is that he could have left the greenhouse earlier, right? That's totally possible.
It can't be. We've already established there's no way the killer could have killed and hung Kojo in such a short space of time.
Correct. However, that's assuming he went through all the trouble of getting the rope, tying Kojiro up, etc. It'd be totally doable if all that happened after he went down to the kitchen and met the others.
But if he did that, Kojo would have ran. If he wasn't dead and he wasn't restrained in any way, he could have used the strength he spent on his dying message running away.
He could have, but that's assuming he was conscious. What if the killer just knocked him out? One quick bonk on the head and boom! All he has to do is drop the weapon, run downstairs, and act all clueless. Then he can come back and do what he pleases with the unconscious Kojiro. That'd even provide a convenient opportunity to grab the other supplies from one of the supply closets. He's definitely strong enough to render someone unconscious long enough, and he'd know that too. He had a perfect test run with you the day before. With this method, all he needed was a weapon to knock him out with, and he could have easily done it. His alibi goes straight out the—
Sorry to cut you off, but there's a big issue with that statement. Just now you said the killer needed a weapon, right? What weapon could he have possibly used? The branch required preparation. It needed to be sawed off.
Yeah, that's right. There's no way he could saw off the branch and knock out Kojiro in only 5 minutes.
Kojiro certainly would not have been stupid enough to just sit there and watch him.
Exactly. So without a doubt, the alibi stands, right? it couldn't have been anyone in the kitchen, and that includes Masayuki.
Fuck! Yeah, it still doesn't explain everything. But if his alibi's that solid...
Yep, totally impossible. He definitely couldn't have knocked Kojiro out with bare hands. I mean, look at him.
The killer couldn't have done it by knocking him over either. The grass was far too soft for that.
Exactly! The killer had to have a weapon, and the only possible weapon was the branch. This proves without a doubt that Masayuki can't be the murderer.
No, that's wrong.
What?
It's entirely possible.
What are you doing?
Masayuki, we just proved you couldn't have done it!
You didn't prove anything. All you've done is perpetuate a lie.
What lie? We're trying to help you, you know?
The lie that the branch was the only possible weapon. It's not.
What? Haven't you been listening the entire trial? The branch is the murder weapon. It's the only thing they could have used.
The shovel. The one they used to later reorganize the crime scene. We already know it didn't come from the greenhouse. The killer could have brought it with them. It'd be more than suitable for knocking Kojiro out. From there, they could easily head down to the kitchen, be seen by the others, then return upstairs and finish the job.
Why?
Unbelievable! This guy just disproved his own alibi! And they call me an enigma!
Hang on, that doesn't make any sense. If the shovel was a murder weapon, why the branch? It serves no purpose.
No purpose beyond spreading chaos. The psychological profile is back in effect.
There you go! See? Even now he's playing mind games with us. He's basically just confessing!
Why would he confess? That'll just get him killed!
No, it'll get us arguing, like we are now! It's all a part of his plan!
It is quite possible. I'm down to only 4 suspects now.
Hang on, you can't seriously believe this.
I'm sorry to say, Ji-yeong, but these are good points.
And there's still that dying message. No one's found any way to disprove that.
Okay, on 3, we all vote Masayuki. Ready? 3, 2...
Damn it, Masayuki, say something! You've dug yourself into this hole, now get yourself out of it! Don't be an idiot, they're gonna vote for you! Look, man, I don't know what insane 10,000 IQ play you're making, but it really can't be worth all this. This is life or death! Seriously, I don't understand at all. What's going on in that twisted head of yours?
I think I know. Yelena, could you repeat that psychological profile?
Of course. The killer is someone intelligent and opportunistic, taking advantage of the situation by muddying the waters and causing chaos, with the end goal of forcing us into conflict with one another.
And why do they want that?
To obfuscate their presence and get away with the murder.
Okay, humor me. Let's take the murder out of the equation for a sec. Why then would they do all that?
At that point, there's no logical reason. We must assume they are a deeply twisted individual, likely with no motivation beyond making us all suffer.
What if the psychological profile doesn't apply to the killer, but to someone else instead? Someone who's been running this entire trial, taking advantage of evidence and others' perceptions of them, all for the sake of chaos.
Oh? I see where you're going.
The killer isn't the one leading us in circles. It's you, isn't it, Masayuki Daiju?
She got me.
You've been quiet this entire time, but even without words, you've been controlling the entire narrative of this trial. You gave us an easy target. Too easy of a target, even. By being so suspicious, you directed our thinking to revolve around you. So much so that we wind up missing the forest for the trees, not taking all the evidence for what it is, but instead trying to warp it to fit the preconceived notion that you're the killer. We wind up fixating on intricate chains of logic or psychological tricks and missing the obvious details. The shovel, for example. We totally missed it this entire time, all because we were focused on you. Emotionally, too. You've been manipulating us. By being stoic and silent, we project onto you. You give us nothing, so we take what we want to see, right? Mamiko wants someone to be mad at, someone to blame. So that's you. Ji-yeong and I want to be your friends, so we wind up inclined to defend you when you can't defend yourself. Naturally, that pits us against each other, and soon enough, everyone else is drawn in. Chaos ensues. I'm right about all that, aren't I?
You are?
Why? That's the one part I just can't understand. You don't just want us all to suffer, do you?
Of course not. It's the exact opposite. Suffering is a necessary step, but not the ultimate goal. I want to help all of you, so much so that you'll never suffer again. It's like surgery, agonizing for a time, but it'll prevent further damage.
I don't get it. What the fuck are you saying?
Yeah, for our sakes, what is this crap?
How did it feel to view me as a murderer? Did it make you angry? Did you feel betrayed? Were you disgusted? Horrified? Whatever it was, you felt those negative emotions because you had some form of hope for me. Hope that I was something I'm not. That I was better than I am. And like all hope, it was inevitably crushed, leaving behind only those painful emotions, only that despair. It hurts, doesn't it, to confront such a hellish possibility? Am I the murderer, or am I not? When you vote, you'll have that decision to make. You'll hold my life in your hands. Not just mine, everyone's. Are you willing to condemn me to death? Are you willing to risk condemning yourselves to death? The reality is, that's the awful decision these class trials force you to make. All I've done is accelerate it. No matter what you choose, someone in this room is a murderer, and that sets a precedent. If they can crack, why can't you? The deeper we go, the worse and worse it gets. Any one of us could be a killer. Any of us could be a victim. How much bloodshed will there be? How many times will we have to repeat this same horrible process? How many class trials will you have to suffer through? All this anguish comes simply because you all had hope. Hope inevitably gives way to despair. It's okay. It's only natural. This whole game was designed to perpetuate that cycle, but there's a way to end it. A way to prevent this pain from going on any longer. Accept despair from the very beginning. Reject any and all hope. That's the only way.
That's some crazy serial killer talk, right?
It's definitely crazy, that's for sure.
Masayuki, you're really this far gone?
Reject hope? What are you blathering about? What kind of a fool would abandon all faith like that?
You want us all to be okay?
No, he wants us to be emotionally dead. Like him.
Correct. I understand that to you it's unthinkable, but if you strip away all the emotion and just think logically, it's objectively correct. Why would you choose to perpetuate your own pain? There's no reasonable answer.
Wow, you are very uniquely twisted, Masayuki.
I'll say.
Believe that if you wish, but so long as you hold on to hope, your suffering will never end. You'll regret not resigning yourself to despair.
We won't, though. I mean, as it stands, it's too easy.
What?
You wanted to corner us, force us to accept despair, right? But we've got such easy ways out.
Elaborate.
You've reduced it down to a simple 50-50. We either vote for you, or we don't. Sure, it's a hard decision, but ultimately, either outcome doesn't really work for you. If it is you, and we vote right, we can just write you off as a crazy guy who did a crazy thing by murdering someone. Is that really okay? The other result is, if you're the killer and we vote for someone else, we'll all die. And yeah, at the prospects of our own deaths, we'll be horrified, screaming, crying, despairing. But we won't accept it. Not in the way you want us to, at least. We'd be able to write ourselves off as just victims of your manipulation. In the end, you've made the decision agonizing, borderline impossible. But the results are short-sighted. They don't get you what you want at all. You never really wanted us to vote, did you? You just wanted us to break before we reached that point. Let's say we all accepted despair. We'd still have to find the killer to leave this place alive. You've planned for that, right?
What are you suggesting?
You know how to solve this case already, don't you? If you do, please, explain it. After all, that'd be the greater despair, wouldn't it? The cold, hard, undeniable truth. We'd have no choice but to accept it.
You're right. Fine. I'll patch up all the holes in this case, clear my name, and get us all on the path to the truth.
For real? You're gonna help?
So he's on our side now? Oh, I'm confused.
All it'll take is one small thing.
One thing? To do all that? Cut the bullshit! I thought you were gonna be honest this time.
No, it's really just that easy.
Out with it then. What's this miracle piece of evidence that solves everything?
We don't need any more evidence. We just need to look at what we have differently. Namely, we need to stop thinking of any of us as the killer.
You're saying none of us killed him? That's hogwash! He didn't just up and die for no reason!
Ooh, are we going back to suicide?
No. One of us definitely killed him, but we need to stop attributing the actions of his killer to anyone here. The actual role we've ascribed to the killer is very different to the person who actually dealt the final blow.
What does that mean? You're saying the killer and the person who set up the murder are two separate people?
Precisely. The real culprit behind this murder, the one who made all of this happen, is none other than Kojiro Nakusawa himself.
What? What? What?